So, welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever made a perfectly, rational choice? Like maybe you ended a relationship that genuinely seemed healthy or you quit a job right when you were about to get this massive promotion.
Right, something that looks totally backward from the outside.
Exactly, and you justified it, right? You probably sat at your kitchen table with like a 12-page pro and con list, completely convincing yourself you were doing the logical thing.
Oh, the famous pro and con list. We all do it.
Yeah, we all do it. But then you look back, maybe 5 or 10 years later, and you realize with this horrible sinking feeling that you were actually just, running away from a feeling.
You weren't moving toward anything new at all.
No. You were fleeing something incredibly old. And the whole list was just a cover story, a story you told yourself so you wouldn't have to face why you were actually running.
It is a profound and, frankly, a pretty terrifying realization when that illusion of total control finally shatters.
It really is.
Because what we fiercely defend is our independent choice. It's so often just the residue of battles we fought and lost and buried when we were small children.
Wow, yeah. Battles we lost as kids.
Exactly. And to really understand the mechanics of this self-sabotage, I want you to imagine your own psyche as a sprawling house. You've lived in it your whole life, you know every single hallway.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
But somewhere in the center of this house, there is a sealed room. It's not a room you could locate on a blueprint, but it exists with the same material certainty as the bones beneath your skin.
A sealed room? That gives me chills just thinking about it.
Right. And the door, it wasn't locked with a brass key. It was sealed shut by a psychological survival mechanism so fundamental, so deeply embedded in our biology that we don't even see it operating.
And we call that repression, right?
Yes, we call it repression.
And what's wild is that as you're listening to this right now, whether you're making coffee or driving to work, you might already be feeling the faint gravitational pull of that room.
Oh, almost certainly.
Think about those sudden, completely inexplicable chills you get when a casual conversation suddenly veers toward a certain subject. Or the way your shoulders physically jump up to your ears when a particular seemingly harmless melody drifts out of a passing car.
Yes, those bodily reactions.
Or that sudden, intense aversion that rises up in your throat like bile when an acquaintance uses a really specific hand gesture. Those aren't just random glitches in your nervous system, they are signals.
Alarms going off.
Exactly. And today, our mission for this deep dive is to tear up the floorboards and figure out why we build our entire adult lives around avoiding that one sealed room in the center of the house.
It's a huge undertaking, but it's so necessary.
Because, okay, let's unpack this. When I think about it, it feels like we are all master architects, right? But instead of designing a house to actually live and thrive in, we spend decades designing these elaborate, exhausting mazes and detours.
Just to avoid the hallway.
Yes. Just to guarantee we never ever accidentally walk past that specific door. But what I want to know is, what is so dangerous that we have to hide it from ourselves?
Well, we culturally tend to think of repression as a gentle kind of forgetting, like a photograph left out in the sun, where time just washes over the memory until it fades away.
Like it just naturally decays over time.
Right, but it is absolutely not that. It is an active, violent excision.
Violent, really?
Yes. Imagine a young child who experiences a surge of feeling that is simply too massive and dangerous for their developing brain to integrate.
Oh, right.
Let's say it's a profound, terrifying rage at a parent whose love feels entirely conditional. Or maybe a deep, paralyzing shame about a bodily impulse. For a small child, that feeling isn't just uncomfortable.
It threatens their actual survival, doesn't it?
Exactly. It threatens the very attachment they need for literal physical survival. If they express that rage, they might be abandoned.
So the stakes are literally life and death in the child's mind. And because they can't process it, the mind just, cuts it out.
That cut is practically surgical. But it happens without a drop of anesthesia. Right. The mind literally divides itself to survive.
Wow.
And what's crucial to understand about this mechanism is how it splits the experience. The factual memory of the event might remain perfectly intact as this, neutral, boring data point.
So you still remember what happened, technically.
Right. You might sit at a dinner party and casually say, oh yeah, my mother was often absent, she worked a lot. But the volcanic terror, the desperate yearning, the white-hot anger that accompanied that absence as a child.
That's what gets locked away.
Exactly. That emotional core is violently wrenched away from the memory and thrust completely below the floorboards of consciousness. The door is bricked over, painted, and made to look like a normal hallway.
So we successfully walk away from the door and basically spend the rest of our lives pretending it's just a blank wall.
That's the grand illusion. And it forces us to completely reevaluate how we view our own daily suffering.
How so?
Well, usually when we go to therapy or talk to our friends, we think our symptom, the thing ruining our life, is whatever ugly monster is hiding inside that sealed room.
Right, we think the trauma is the problem.
But the symptom is actually the elaborate architecture of avoidance itself. It's the detour.
Wait, the detour is the symptom.
Yes, it's that lucrative career you abandoned, not because you were failing or burned out, but because succeeding would have required you to step into a spotlight. And that spotlight felt dangerously identical to a childhood vulnerability you swore to never feel again.
That is heavy. So the thing I'm calling my deliberate life choice is really just a convoluted way to avoid walking down that hallway.
The conscious mind genuinely believes it is sovereign. It sits on its throne, makes that 12-page pro and con list you mentioned, and declares, I'm leaving this job because I need better growth opportunities.
I've said that exact sentence.
We all have. But the conscious mind is merely drafting a PR statement to ratify a decision that was already made in the dark.
That's wild.
The older primitive calculus operating in the basement of the house is simply scanning the environment and saying, this path leads away from the door, therefore this path is safe.
I hear what you're saying about the sealed room, and the architecture of avoidance makes, logical sense. But I struggle with attributing every single little quirk to massive hidden childhood trauma.
It can be a hard pill to swallow.
I mean, I have to push back a bit here. Sometimes a mistake is just a mistake, isn't it?
Give me an example.
Okay, like if I'm giving a wedding toast and I'm nervous and I accidentally slip up and say, I'd like to blame my partner instead of I'd like to thank my partner, isn't my brain just misfiring under stress?
That's a fair question.
Because it feels exhausting to assume my unconscious is sending me a coded message every time I fumble a word.
It does feel exhausting, and the ego absolutely hates the idea that it isn't in total control of its own speech.
Yeah, nobody wants to feel out of control.
But the reason we can't just dismiss these glitches is because the repressed material doesn't age. It doesn't decay or gather dust inside that sealed room.
So it's still fresh.
It persists with the exact same dynamic, explosive, present tense energy it had the day you buried it when you were 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
Because it is still so highly charged, it is constantly vibrating under the floorboards, desperately seeking a way to discharge that energy. But your conscious mind is standing guard, refusing to let it out directly.
So it has to sneak out.
Exactly. The repressed feeling has to get creative. It finds loopholes. It negotiates a settlement between your hidden desire and your waking censorship. We call these compromise formations.
Compromise formation, so it's literally a negotiation.
Yes, precisely.
The hidden feeling says, I need to get out, and the conscious mind says, you can't come out looking like that, so they just dress it up in a disguise.
A very clever disguise. When you are standing at that wedding and you say blame instead of thank, censorship momentarily fails because you are fatigued or stressed.
The guard fell asleep for a second.
Exactly. And the unconscious truth, perhaps a deep, unacknowledged resentment toward your partner, gets to sprint across the stage for a split second before the curtain drops again.
That's terrifying.
If you start looking closely at your own life, these aren't random, meaningless glitches. They form a consistent, undeniable counter-narrative beneath the polished official story of who you claim to be.
Okay, let's unpack how that counter-narrative actually looks in daily life. Take this colleague I constantly misname. I call him Dave instead of Dan, like 3 times a week. It's so embarrassing.
It happens. But if you stop and really analyze Dan, you might realize he bears a striking emotional resemblance, or perhaps a physical mannerism, to a Dave from your past.
Like someone who hurt me.
Someone who humiliated you, someone you swore you had moved past. The misnaming is your unconscious refusing to let you forget the danger.
That is so specific.
Or consider the dentist appointment you mysteriously forget to attend 3 times in a row. You apologize, you pay the cancellation fee, you swear you just forgot.
I do that with my mechanic.
Right. But then you realize the appointment is at 8 in the morning. The exact hour your volatile father used to leave for work each morning.
Oh my God.
The exact hour you used to stand at the living room window, feeling an unbearable, sickening uncertainty about what mood he would be in when he returned.
Oh, wow. So the brain just completely collapses time.
The unconscious has no concept of time. It has no clocks. It only knows emotional intensity.
That explains so much.
The adult professional trying to manage a Google Calendar is simultaneously the terrified child negotiating their physical survival. And nowhere is this temporal collapse more obvious or more vivid than in our dreams.
Right, dreams.
Dreams are the royal road straight to the threshold of that sealed room.
Because when we sleep, the guard at the door finally takes a coffee break.
The ego's rigid vigilance finally relaxes, yes. But the raw truth of what's in the room is still too blindingly intense to look at directly.
So we still can't just see it.
If you looked at it directly, the anxiety would wake you up instantly. So the mind acts as a film director, using a disguised visual language.
How does it do that?
It uses mechanisms like condensation, where 5 different terrifying feelings are compressed into a single bizarre object, and displacement, where an intense, unacceptable emotion is shifted onto something trivial.
I want to pause on displacement because I think we do this while we are awake too.
Oh, absolutely we do.
Like, if my boss publicly berates me at 4 in the afternoon and I can't yell back because, I need my salary, I bottle it up.
You swallow it.
Right. Then in 5, I go to a cafe, the barista gets my order slightly wrong, and I absolutely explode at them. I'm displacing the rage onto a safer target.
That is a perfect waking example of displacement. The mechanism in dreams is identical, just more symbolic.
So it's the same risk calculation.
Exactly. The psyche calculates the risk yelling at the boss destroys our livelihood. Yelling at the barista only costs us a cup of coffee.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In a dream, the risk calculation is about psychological survival. If you dream of being chased down a dark alley by a faceless monster, that monster isn't a random scary movie trope.
What is it then?
It is the displaced, embodied memory of your own childhood helplessness in the face of an overpowering adult. By giving the terror a fake, monstrous face, the dream allows you to process a fraction of the fear.
Without breaking you.
Right, without forcing you to confront the devastating reality that the monster was actually someone you loved and relied on. The dream distorts the image specifically to protect you from waking up to an unbearable truth.
It's exhausting just thinking about the sheer amount of mental gymnastics happening behind the scenes.
It's a full-time job for your mind.
Honestly, it makes me feel quite vulnerable to admit this, but sometimes, even when my life looks incredibly successful on paper, good job, nice friends, stable routine, I just carry around this vague sense of inauthenticity.
I think a lot of people feel that.
Like a chronic, bone-deep emotional fatigue is what we call our personality, sometimes just a really exhausting, around-the-clock theatrical performance to keep the ego from collapsing.
The fatigue you are describing is universally human, and it is deeply exhausting. Because our personality, the face we show the world, is very often a fortress erected entirely around an absence.
A fortress around an absence? Wow.
We tend to think of the ego as a king sitting confidently on a throne making decrees. But the ego is actually a besieged, overworked administrator trying to manage a perpetual 3-way hostage crisis.
A hostage crisis?
Yes, it has to appease the hidden primitive desires banging on the floorboards. It has to dodge the harsh, punitive judgments of your internal critic. And it has to somehow pay taxes and buy groceries in the real world.
A besieged administrator. I love that, and I hate how agonizingly accurate it feels. So how does this poor administrator keep the fortress walls from crumbling?
By deploying defense mechanisms. We use these invisible shields constantly to keep the repressed material from flooding the main floor of the house.
Like what?
Take projection. That's when we take our own unacceptable impulse, pluck it out of our own mind, and paste it onto someone else.
Oh, like saying, I don't hate my coworker is obsessed with undermining me.
Exactly. Because owning the hatred makes you the bad guy.
Right. Or there's rationalization, which is honestly my personal favorite.
Let's hear it.
The other day, I convinced myself I couldn't go to the gym because it was raining and my dog looked a little sad, and I needed to catch up on a podcast for personal growth. So actually, the healthiest possible choice was to stay on the couch and eat an entire bag of chips.
That is a very robust defense.
I built a bulletproof legal case for skipping a workout.
You constructed a highly logical, socially acceptable narrative to explain a behavior whose true motive, perhaps a fear of physical exertion or a deep-seated belief that you don't deserve to feel healthy, remains completely hidden.
It is kind of brilliant.
It's brilliant, really. We even turn our defenses into high art. That's sublimation.
Sublimation.
Redirecting forbidden, aggressive, or erotic energy into culturally beautiful outlets, like painting, writing poetry, or even building a massive company.
Turning the mess into something useful.
Yes. It's the most graceful defense we have, but make no mistake, it is still a defense. And powering that fortress, Keeping those walls reinforced 24 hours a day consumes a staggering amount of your daily psychic energy.
That is the chronic fatigue I'm feeling.
That is exactly the fatigue.
So if someone listening right now realizes they are exhausted and they actively try to peek behind their own walls, what happens? Does the mind just step aside and let you look at the sealed room?
Oh no, the mind fights back with everything it has.
Yeah.
This is what we call resistance.
Resistance.
When you start getting uncomfortably close to the truth of that sealed room, your mind will throw up smoke bombs. You might be having a deep conversation and suddenly feel profoundly, inexplicably bored.
Just totally zone out.
Yes. Or you might start intellectualizing, using massive clinical vocabulary words to discuss your trauma so you don't have to actually feel the hot shame rising in your throat.
I definitely do.
Or you might suddenly start arriving 20 minutes late to therapy, or picking fights with your spouse right when you're about to be vulnerable.
Which means we shouldn't view that resistance as a personal failure. We shouldn't beat ourselves up for picking the fight.
Never. Resistance is a profound revelation. It is the loyal guardian of the room. When resistance flares up, it isn't ruining the work. It is emerging to ask you the most serious question of your life.
Which is,
are you finally prepared to know what you have spent a lifetime deliberately not knowing?
here's where it gets really interesting. Because when those intellectual smoke bombs fail, when my rationalizations don't work anymore and I can't outthink my own anxiety, where does all that conflict go?
It has to go somewhere.
It doesn't just evaporate. It feels like it drops straight down into my physical body.
Yes, exactly.
If the house metaphor holds up, it's like the walls of the fortress are holding, but the foundation itself is groaning under the weight of the sealed room. My mind hit delete on the file, but my nervous system kept a permanent backup.
You are stepping right into the reality of somatic memory.
Somatic memory.
Long after your conscious narrative memory fades, your nervous system retains the exact visceral imprint of early emotional experiences. It acts as a physical archive.
That is so wild.
So that sudden gripping nausea you feel right before stepping into a routine meeting, it isn't just standard performance anxiety.
It's an old feeling.
It might be a bodily memory of a parent's sharp competitive envy whenever you showed signs of independence or success as a child.
So the body speaks when speech is forbidden.
Exactly. The body becomes a theater for the unexpressed. A phobia of elevators might not have anything to do with a fear of a mechanical shaft or a snapped cable.
It's about being trapped.
It might perfectly encode a childhood experience of total emotional entrapment in a family dynamic where escape felt literally impossible.
Wow.
Psychosomatic illnesses, the chronic tight throat, the lower back pain that no doctor can find a structural reason for, these are literal biological translations of psychic conflict. The secret is out. It's just speaking a language you haven't learned to translate yet.
But there's another language too, right? The one in my head.
Ah, the internal voice.
Yeah. If you are listening to this on your morning commute, I want you to think about the internal voice that beat you up mercilessly because you hit snooze and left the house 5 minutes late today.
The one that says you ruined everything.
The voice that told you you're a lazy failure. Why does my own internal critic use the files from the sealed room as ammunition against me?
That unimaginably cruel voice is the superego. It is the internalized voice of every parental prohibition, every societal expectation, and every rigid rule you absorbed before you were old enough to question them.
We usually think of that as our conscience, right?
We like to think of it as a helpful moral compass. But very often, the superego operates as a sadistic internal persecutor.
Sadistic is a strong word.
It fits. It doesn't just want you to be good, it actively demands that you be punished. Have you ever noticed an absolute inability to receive a genuine compliment without immediately self-sabotaging?
Constantly. If someone tells me I did a great job on a project, my skin literally crawls.
You can't accept it.
I will immediately deflect, insult my own work, or literally knock a glass of water over just to puncture the tension. I feel like I have to balance the scales by proving I'm actually a mess.
That is the internal persecutor demanding its pound of flesh. It says, how dare you enjoy this success when you know how inherently flawed you are?
That is so dark.
To break free from this, you have to achieve a terrifying realization. That inner critic is not an objective teller of universal truth. It is an internalized ghost of an authority filter from your past.
So we have to question it.
Questioning that voice will cause a severe emotional vertigo because you are defying the very rules that kept you safe and securely attached to your caregivers as a child.
Like breaking the ultimate rule.
But stepping into that vertigo, defying the internal tyrant, is the only way you will ever build an authentic, self-authored, ethical framework for your life, rather than just acting out of a childish fear of punishment.
Okay, let's bring all of this down to the ground, because if I am walking around completely blind to this, if I am constantly casting my romantic partner in the role of my highly critical father, or I am projecting the image of my emotionally absent mother onto my boss, and I'm doing it without a shred of conscious awareness.
Which is incredibly common.
How on earth do I stop reenacting this ancient play?
What you were describing is perhaps the most tragic human loop, the repetition compulsion.
Repetition compulsion.
We unconsciously, magnetically choose partners, friendships, and work environments that perfectly replicate the specific contours of our original childhood wounds.
Why do we do that to ourselves?
And we don't do this because we are masochists who want to suffer. We do it out of a desperate, unconscious optimism.
Optimism.
Yes. The psyche is trying to master the original trauma by setting up the exact same variables, hoping that this time the ending will be different.
Oh man, the magical thinking of the child.
Exactly.
This time, if I just try hard enough, the cold, emotionally unavailable partner will finally warm up and love me, and that will retroactively heal the fact that my parent couldn't.
Precisely. It is an attempt at time travel. But without conscious awareness, it is just a prison sentence. The play runs on a permanent loop.
So how do we break out?
The only way to break the cycle is to develop a psychological muscle called the observing ego.
The observing ego, meaning like the ability to step out of the play and watch yourself acting in it.
Yes, exactly that.
Let's use a real example. Say I'm arguing with my partner about dishes in the sink. It's a stupid argument, but suddenly I'm trembling with rage.
A huge reaction to a small trigger.
My brain goes, they didn't wash the pan, therefore they don't respect my time, therefore they don't care about me, therefore I am completely abandoned. How does the observing ego step into that cascade?
In that exact moment, when the nervous system is screaming that you are being abandoned, the observing ego is the part of you that takes a breath, steps into the hallway of the house, and witnesses the reaction without immediate judgment.
Without judging it.
It's the voice that interrupts the cascade to say, look at how much panic we are in over a frying pan. I notice I'm equating a dirty dish with total relational abandonment.
You just name it.
You don't try to instantly fix it. You just observe the mechanism. You bring the ghost out of the sealed room and introduce it to the present moment.
That sounds incredibly grounding.
You look at the partner standing in the kitchen, and you consciously, deliberately recognize, this person is not my parent. This kitchen is not my childhood home. I am not that helpless child anymore. The danger has actually passed.
This is not then. I am not that child. The danger has passed. That gives me genuine chills.
It's a powerful realization.
Because it completely reframes the entire purpose of doing this psychological work. The goal isn't to aggressively tear down our defenses.
No, not at all.
We aren't trying to take a sledgehammer and violently bust down the door to the sealed room to eradicate the bad feelings. It sounds like the goal is just to patiently, bravely stand at the threshold, to breathe into that uncomfortable tension in our body, and eventually to gently welcome back those exiled parts of ourselves.
That is the essence of the work. Wholeness is never the absence of conflict. You will always have contradictory desires. You will always have moments of irrational fear.
We can't escape that.
True wholeness is simply the capacity to hold those contradictions without fragmenting into pieces. The repressed parts of you, the childhood anger, the bodily shame, the desperate longing, they don't want to destroy your life.
What do they want?
They just want to be known. And once they are deeply known, once you invite them out of the dark basement and give them a seat at the table, they permanently cease to rule your choices from the shadows.
I am going to be sitting with the reality of that observing ego for a long time. And to you listening right now, whether you are finishing your commute, washing those dishes, or just taking a walk, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder.
It's been a profound journey today.
It really has. So the next time you feel a sudden, inexplicable aversion to something totally mundane, a random song on the radio, a stranger's specific laugh in a coffee shop, or a casual throwaway phrase from a friend.
Pay attention to it.
Exactly. Don't just brush it off as a quirk. Pause for 1 second, step into the hallway, and ask yourself what ghost from your own sealed room is rattling its chains right now, just asking to finally be known.